Guys, so we once again have my iPhone balanced on top of the school camera trying to see if this is going to work. So I appreciate so much that you are flexible with the instructional videos this year. We are about to do page 27 in our interactive notebook. It is going to be over the algebra, standard 2, objective 1, which is proportions, which we've already been doing, but we're using graphs, tables, equations, verbal descriptions, and with all of those, we're going to be finding unit rate. So before we really get into this video, you're going to need this handout, probably from the activity table, and you're going to want to cut this out as tightly as you can, and on the bottom, down here, you're going to want to make sure when you glue it in that you leave room to, because this is a graph and we have to label our graph. So you're not only going to need to number this, you're going to need to title what it is that you're doing. So I'm going to show you in a minute what that looks like. But you're also going to need a pair of scissors, of course, to cut those apart. You'll need a pencil and your glue, and I'm going to use 4 colors of highlighters because it shows up better in the video and it's a little bit quicker. Please don't come and ask about highlighters from me. If you have your own, that's great. If not, get 4 colors of color pencils, and for your interactive notebook, that will be great. Finally, after you've cut those apart and you've kind of assembled those things, you're going to put your interactive notebook together like this. In a minute, I'm going to have you pause the video and I want you to write this down. But look at the overall layout. I glued this to the very top, okay? And I only put a touch of glue in each corner and laid it down so that my paper is not wet and I should be able to fill it all in. And then right underneath it, I put the other, and I'm going to show you I've left plenty of room down here to not only label my graph, but also fill in the numbers and stuff. So it all fits, but it's really tight and close. And then if you will go ahead and put your screen on full size, I want you to fill this in before we get started. This is what we're going to do. We're going to be using tables, graphs, equations with verbal descriptions and symbols. And with all of these, we're going to be finding the unit rate. And I'm going to talk briefly about what an independent and dependent variables are, and then remind you about unit rate and constant proportionality. So you might get your video paused, get all of your materials together, and then we can go. Okay, excellent. So thanks for coming back, and let's talk first about our definitions. I'm going to talk to you about the difference between an independent variable and a dependent variable. And to tell you the truth, in 7th grade, we're not really going to go into that a lot. It's not going to be part of your testing, but it's something that you'll hear over and over again for the next several years. And it can be a little bit confusing. The main thing for you to know is that the independent variable is going to be your x, and the one that's dependent upon the independent one is your y. And really, that is pretty much the best way to explain that, is that an independent variable is a variable whose value depends or determines, not depends. If it's depending, it's down here. Let's get that word in here. The dependent variable depends, right? Dependent depends. The independent value determines. Okay? It's like the boss. It determines the value of other variables. Kind of like the dependent variable. The dependent variable, which is going to be y, depends upon the independent. I know, boy, that sounds confusing. But think of it this way. Time is always going to be our independent variable. Time doesn't change depending on how much money you're making per hour. The how much money you're making per hour changes depending on how many hours. So an independent variable, for example, is time. Time is always independent. Okay? I learned that early. That's the one thing that I've always remembered, even from when I was a kid. Now, unit rate. Unit rate, we've already talked about. We did a whole page on that. And you know that unit rate is a rate with the denominator of 1. Okay? So if I say that I can buy 3 Diet Cokes for $4, then I would have said I could have 3 Diet Cokes for $4. $4 for 3. And I would need to change this to a 1, and I would just do it simply by box topping. And I would get, what is 4 divided by 3? That's right, 1 1/3. So each Diet Coke would cost me $1.33. Okay, constant proportionality, you know, most of the time in 7th grade, it really is just unit rate. But I'm going to give you the full definition. The constant of proportionality, also known as slope, also known as rate, also known as unit rate. But the constant proportionality technically is the constant, right? Isn't that clever? Constant value of a ratio of 2 proportional quantities when those are x and y, right? And you know that the x in a coordinate pair comes first, okay? And it's the number that's always multiplied. Ooh, I shouldn't put multiplied and x together. I'm going to have to, it's a number that is, I'm going to spell it out. Multiplied to x. See, that would have been messy if I said multiplied to x. This is important, so I'm going to highlight that too. You can use your colored pencils. Okay, the constant proportionality is always multiplied to x. So y equals the constant proportionality times x. I know you've seen that before, right? Let's get that a different highlighting color there. Okay, so let's now look at what we have here. This is about Olivia. Always charges the same rate for babysitting. On Saturday, she earned $30 in 5 hours. And represent that relationship as a table, an equation, and a graph. This is not going to